What is up, duelists, and welcome to a Master Duel video. Yes, you heard that right. There's a ban list that might change a lot of things, finally, and I'm here to talk about it. Now, of course, I haven't been playing as much Master Duel lately. I kind of dipped during Full Power Malice format, but I've come back recently a little bit, played more during Mitsurugi release, messed around with this and that. Had my first Master Duel upload planned in a long time. That's going to happen soon. And now they hit us with this ban list. And this is not going to be a blind reaction. I have seen it, but I want to go over the changes and I want to talk about them. And I want to talk about why I think this is one of the best, if not the best, Master Duel ban list we've gotten in a long time. I want to preface this by saying it's not perfect, but it is, in my opinion, very good. And I want to talk about the positives. And we're also going to get into some of the things that are missing. Spoilers, Maxi is still legal. So that is something we're going to talk about towards the end. However, let's begin by taking a look at the things that have changed. And of course, first things first, the Labyrinth furnitures are going back to 3, which is kind of sad because we're losing a big meme here, because every time anything was semi-limited, we would always compare the strength of Maxi, for example, to Labyrinth Toby. But of course, these cards deserve to be at 3. It was ridiculous that these cards were at 3 for this long. So happy for this one. I'm not sure how much it's gonna matter, but like Labyrinth is now back at no cards on the ban list, which is 100% fair. Okay. And now we're getting into the heavy hitters. Duel and Lockbird going from 3 to 2 is interesting because Master Duel is the first format to actually hit Duel and Lockbird. A card that TCG players have been asking for a long time to also get banned even, is now going to 2 in Master Duel. And I do think the idea behind this is that some decks, because you do have to look at this card differently in Master Duel than you do in the TCG, because this card in Master Duel also counters Max C for certain strategies. And I feel like that's the reason why it's going onto the list, because decks like, specifically at the moment, Malice and Orchist can use this card to counter Max C very effectively, which is something that sets those decks apart from other decks that don't want to troll themselves and therefore can't use it to counter Max C. Which is a whole lot of, it's a chain of a whole lot of weird arguments. I'm not entirely sure where I am on that debate. Of course, technically, in the word, like, technically Maxi should be banned. So this is not a discussion we should have, as Duel and Lockbird being a counter to Maxi. At the same time, that's not the world we live in. Maxi is legal in Master Duel, so it makes those decks even stronger. And then also you can talk about Duel and Lockbird just in general being a card even outside of the Maxi argument. Being a card that's not very fun to play against. So I'm honestly not mad about going down to 2. A lot of people would probably like to see it get hit even harder, but I would say it's a start. And if it provides enjoyable gameplay, then maybe the other formats can follow suit on this, and we might eventually get rid of the little Duel and Lockbird. But I guess we'll see how it goes. I'm not opposed to it though. I'm not particularly fond of the gameplay that this card provides. I understand that it keeps certain strategies in check, but I'm not the biggest fan of that argument personally, because I think if there's a strategy that needs to be kept in check with Duel and Lockbird, you should probably hit that strategy. Yeah, okay. Cards to be limited: Sword Ryziel and X Ryziel, and that's big. This is obviously aimed at Ryziel, and I mean, X Ryziel to 1 is something that I've been talking about for a long time now. This is now the case in TCG, OCG, and Master Duel. This card is incredibly powerful, especially if you hard draw it. Sword Ryziel to 1 is also a huge hit because that card was at 3 previously. Here's the thing. Ryziel, funnily enough, I think can still be played in Master Duel because or rather, it can still be consistent enough because of cards like 7th Tachyon and 7th Ascension. I believe you can still play Ryziel if you really wanted to. But here's something that really matters with these changes, is that you don't have a second rotation of these cards on turn 2 now, especially if your opponent somehow deals with the Ryziel cross or prevents you from getting to it. But like, it really matters a lot of the times, because the Ryziel end board, if we're talking pure Ryziel, is not usually something that like FTKs the opponent. Usually you'll have the chance to like kind of play into it, maybe out their detonator, maybe make a Typhon bounce detonator or something like that. And then you often lose to the follow-up because one Ryziel card on the follow-up turn just does it all again. this is no longer the case. If you only have one X and one sword, you will run out of those after doing your first turn combo, and that is massive. Also, of course, it is a consistency debuff. You're not going to have a starter as often. You're more often going to have to use 7th Tachyon, 7th Ascension to find these, which go -1, so that is worse. So these are impactful hits to Ryziel, and those were definitely warranted. Ryziel was a very, very powerful deck. Not only deck itself, but also very, very splashable engine in decks like Mitsurugi, or like Fiendsmith Ryziel, for example. And so these are still, I think we're still going to see some Ryziel, but significantly weaker, which I think is good overall. It's worth mentioning, though, that specifically in Sword Ryziel's case, there were a bunch of decks in the TCG that only played one Sword Ryziel anyways, because especially some of the hybrid versions, you would sometimes only play like multiple Ice, multiple X, but only one Sword, because it was like the weakest one to draw. Like Fiendsmith Ryziel, I think for some time only played one Sword Ryziel, and I think some Mitsurugi decks did too. So it's not the biggest deal for some of the hybrid variations, but the X Ryziel is a massive deal for every Ryziel variation. And this is honestly, this is one of my favorite hits on this ban list, because I was not sure it was ever going to happen. Called by the Grave is going to 1. This card is a toxic Yu-Gi-Oh card in basically every sense, and I've talked about this beforehand. I know some people will disagree on this, because they'll say like, how else am I supposed to beat these hand traps with my rogue strategy? This card is really uninteractive, and I'll tell you why. Because going second in Yu-Gi-Oh is already difficult, and going second in Yu-Gi-Oh, the only chance you really have to interact with your opponent is basically taken away by Called by the Grave. It's like a card that 99% of the time just benefits the player going first, and the even more powerful part of this card is that even if your opponent doesn't have a hand trap, it just becomes an end board piece. You know, like you just said it, and it's an amazingly strong card even against most decks that don't play any hand traps. So it basically just makes going first stronger, and that is not something I like in this case, because it literally just makes it so your opponent has to draw absurdly powerful hands to even win going. So I'm a big fan of this card being hit. In my opinion, I've said it in the past, this card should be banned. It should not exist. But in Master Duel in particular, because of the Maxi situation, this card can be viewed as like, there's even more polarizing arguments here, you know, like, because there's people that are saying like this card should be at 3 because how else am I supposed to counter Maxi? Which if that's the argument you're on, then your argument should be ban Maxi. If there's a card like this that can only be justified because it beats Maxi, then Maxi probably should be banned. This card itself is pretty toxic, and I'm very happy it's gone to 1. I wasn't sure it was ever going to happen. The OCG has it at 2 for a long time now, and Master Duel is usually closer to the OCG. I hope that everyone is going to be excited about this change, and that they're going to see all the positive feedback that I hope that I'm providing right now, and I think more people are going to provide about Called by the Grave being limited, and I hope that they can follow suit in the OCG soon, and maybe, you know, with cards like Called by the Grave and Droll and Lockbird going onto this ban list, maybe if Maxi resolves more often, and they can actually see how high the win rate of that card is when it resolves, maybe this is a first step into a direction where they get rid of Maxi as well, which, you know, would be awesome. Malice P. Chessy Cat is a small hit to Malice. It's a very Master Duel typical hit, I would say. Just limiting a random piece of the deck. I do think this is still welcome. I mean, I'll take it. It's maybe not my preferred way to hit Malice, but I think it's okay. Admittedly, I do hate when they start normal summon Chessy Cat and activate the effect, because then you're basically forced to use cards like Fuvalos or something immediately, hoping they won't draw an out to it, but then, you know, they just go like plus infinite with Chessy Cat in their combo. Of course, still going to be able to access Chessy Cat in every combo if they can play, right? But that's the thing. They might reach a point where in Master Duel, the deck is so significantly hit that it doesn't even have enough starters anymore. And Chessy Cat, even though it's not a 1-card starter, it's one of the best 2-card combos. So sure, I'll take it. I'll take it, but okay. And here are the heavy hitters, okay? Appaloosa, Bow of the Goddess, from 3 to 0. it's hard to put into words how happy I am about this one, because this card, I wasn't sure if they were gonna do it, because there was one argument out there that was kind of like lingering around, funny, of like, they won't do this because Appaloosa has an alt art that was very hard to get. People had to probably spend money to get that alt art, and therefore they don't want to ban it. So, and that argument, you know what, I can see it. That is definitely a hurdle when it comes to when it comes to hitting a card. So I'm very happy they did it. This card needed to be banned for the future of Master Duel, basically. I can't stress enough how important this is, because this card is banned in the OCG, which is where they design Yu-Gi-Oh cards. New archetypes are not designed around Appaloosa at the moment. So if there's a deck that can maybe spam a couple of bodies that would equal a rank 4, when they design those archetypes, they don't have to think about Appaloosa being a thing. They can just be like, okay, well, this combo, if they play it like this, it's going to be weak to Nibiru. It's fine. That's a balancing factor. Not the case if Appaloosa is legal anymore. And so this was a problem in Master Duel, and it would have become only more problematic as time progresses. So this card needs to be banned. So very, very happy this happened. And this is why we're here. This is why this is a main channel upload for me, because usually, you know, Master Duel ban lists are kind of kind of small, kind of whatever. So I'll just like look at them on stream and then throw them up on the Plus channel. This is a big deal. This feels like something has changed in the Master Duel department when it comes to the ban list, which I'm gonna be honest with you, that needed to happen. That had to happen. A lot of people have been getting frustrated with Master Duel. I think the player numbers have been declining recently a little bit. And of course, in comparison, the TCG has been doing some amazing stuff when it comes to ban list decisions. So Master Duel was kind of paling in comparison. So they needed to kind of pull through. And I feel like this is their attempt at getting people, at pulling people back in. And, you know, to an extent, I think it's going to work. So because it's a very good start. It's not the end all be all ban list that solves every single problem, but it's pretty good. So we have more. Evil Swarm Ouroboros from 3 to 0 before we even get Eclipse Twins. Amazing. Preemptive fit to some hand looping that to an extent was already possible. People were doing it sometimes with Ryziel plugin, but of course with the release of Eclipse Twins, it was going to be way too easy to hand loop with Ryziel. Toxic strategy. No one wants to play against that. So good riddance, Evil Swarm Ouroboros, now banned in all formats. Awesome. Okay. Anti-Spell Fragrance from 1 to 0. Card has no business being at 1. And this is, once again, I don't even know if this card was that popular at the moment in Master Duel, but it's funny that Master Duel out of all 3 formats is the first game to make this step of banning Anti-Spell Fragrance, because TCG and OCG haven't done this yet. So awesome. I'll take it. And then Artifact Mjolnir, let's go. That card also had to go. Absolutely. Of course, we don't have to talk about it too much, why this card had to go. And I'm very happy that this is happening before K9 is even a thing in Master Duel. They got rid of Paradise Smasher and Mjolnir, so we don't have to worry about those cards when K9 comes out. Hats off for that. Very, very happy to see that. And this is a pretty big one. I mean, we can even see from the amount of changes, from the amount of bans, the amount of limits. This is a very good ban list. 4 absolutely toxic and problematic cards are gone. Ryziel and Malice were hit on this ban list. You know, Malice losing Chessy Cat and Appaloosa. Ryziel losing two Sword Ryziels, 1 X Ryziel, and the Ouroboros hand loop option. And honestly, the Called by the Grave and the Droll Lockbird hit, even though they are generic cards, they do hit some of the more toxic, some of the more all-in strategies harder, like Malice, because Malice has less of a plan B into Maxi, and Fuva to that extent, where like sometimes just Called by the Graving or Droll and Lockbird was your plan against Maxi. And that gets me to the thing, of course, while there's a lot of positive things I said so far about this ban list and about Master Duel doing these things, there's obviously one elephant that is in the room whenever you look at a Master Duel ban list. And even if it is a very good ban list, like in this case, we have to talk about, you know, how much is this going to help in an environment where Maxi is still a thing. And I will say, this is going to make it a lot better. You know, Master Duel, even with Maxi being a thing, has still been somewhat enjoyable at times. when Maxi isn't involved. And those games where Maxi isn't involved are going to be a lot more enjoyable now, which is a good thing. And it does feel a little bit like maybe this might be copium, but some of these changes, they feel like we could prepare for a Maxi limit or ban in the future, because we're getting rid of cards like Called by the Grave and Droll and Lockbird here, which, let's face it, are going to make Maxi more impactful. If your opponent has less copies of Called by and less copies of Droll, there's a smaller chance they counter your Maxi, so Maxi might become even more oppressive with this ban list, to a point where there's no longer a choice but to get rid of it. Which is wishful thinking, but at the same time, you know, I'm sure they understand how powerful of a card Maxi is, so they have to understand how impactful these changes are when you're getting rid of cards that can counter Maxi. So we'll see where this ends. You know, I'm hopeful that this is a step in the right direction, which it definitely is. All of these cards are moving in the right direction, and it's a lot of them. It's a lot of cards moving in the right direction. So yes, Maxi is missing, but things are still turning for the better, I would say, for Master Duel. And you know, this makes me hopeful. I'm happy. You know, it's just been a couple of weeks now where I'm just getting good news from all directions. You know, I've been enjoying the TCG. Now that they've gotten rid of all the floodgates, that was amazing. That was very good news. Genesis format has been awesome with the most recent point update, and now Master Duel is kind of following suit in a direction of very positive change, which just makes me happy. You know, I feel like it's just a good time to be a Yu-Gi-Oh player right now. And this is one of those ban lists that is going to make me open Master Duel on the day that it drops. I'm going to be there. I'm going to see what's changing and what's going on. And there's not been a lot of Master Duel ban lists that did this for me. Because they usually are small, kind of meh, don't actually address some of the problem cards, and so on and so forth. So all around, positives. I mean, basically, the only thing missing is if they banned Maxi. If they banned Maxi, I would have been ecstatic right now. But it's a pretty good one. So yeah, credit where credit is due. Let me know what you think of these changes in the comments down below. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye bye, everybody.